My name is Gloria, and I am telling the story in my own words, the way I lived it and the way it still lives inside me. I was born and raised in America, in a calm city called Dayton, a place where mornings were quiet and evenings smelled like cut grass and warm air. My parents believed in simple things: honesty, hard work, and family. They raised me in a small white house with a wooden porch that creaked when you walked on it and a tall maple tree that dropped red leaves every fall. That house was not fancy, but it was full of life. It was the only place where I ever felt truly safe. My mother, Eleanor, loved early mornings. She would sit by the front window with a cup of coffee, watching the street wake up. My father, Thomas, worked long hours, but every evening he came home with the same calm smile. He believed that as long as we were together under one roof, everything would be fine. That house held birthday dinners, quiet talks, and laughter that filled every room. I never thought of it as property or money. To me, it was simply home. My brother Marcus and I were very different. He was older, louder, and always wanted more than what he had. I was quieter and stayed close to my parents. Still, I believed family was family and I trusted him because he was my brother. I never imagined that trust could disappear so quickly. When my parents passed away, the house felt empty in a way I cannot fully explain. The walls were the same. The furniture had not moved, but the warmth was gone. Grief settled into every corner. I felt lost, and I leaned on Marcus during that time. He spoke with confidence and said he would take care of everything. He said the paperwork was confusing and that it would be easier if one person handled it. I agreed without asking questions. I was tired, sad, and broken inside. At first, nothing seemed wrong. We stayed in the house together for a short time, moving around each other like strangers. Then one evening, Marcus sat across from me at the kitchen table. His voice was flat and cold, nothing like the brother I thought I knew. He told me the house belonged to him now. He said I had no share in it and no right to stay. I laughed at first because it sounded like a joke. Then I saw his eyes. He was serious. I asked him where I was supposed to go. He said that was not his problem. He told me the papers were already done. I asked to see them, but he refused. He stood up, opened the front door, and told me to pack my things. I remember my hands shaking as I went to my room. I packed clothes into an old suitcase, my heart pounding with fear and confusion. I kept waiting for him to stop me, to say he was wrong, to say he was sorry. He never did. When I stepped outside, the air felt heavy. The porch creaked one last time under my feet. I stood on the sidewalk holding my suitcase, with $18 in my pocket and nowhere to go. The front door closed behind me, and the sound echoed in my chest. In that moment, I lost more than a house. I lost my place in the world. I lost my parents all over again. I lost my brother. I stood there for a long time, staring at the house. The maple tree moved in the wind, just like it always had. Life went on, even though mine had stopped. Neighbors passed by, but no one asked if I was okay. I felt invisible. I walked away because I had no other choice. Every step felt heavy, like I was leaving part of myself behind. That night, I slept on a bench near a bus stop. I held my suitcase close and watched the lights of passing cars. I kept telling myself that Marcus would change his mind by morning. I told myself this was just a mistake. Deep down, though, I felt something break that could not be fixed. I realized how quickly a person can become homeless, how thin the line is between safety and nothing. In the days that followed, I kept thinking about the house. I thought about my mother's voice in the kitchen and my father's quiet steps in the hallway. I wondered how Marcus could live there without them, without me. I blamed myself for trusting him, but grief had made me weak. I did not fight because I did not know how. I believed I had no power. I told myself that I would survive somehow, even if I did not know how yet. I had no plan, no home, and no support, but I was still breathing. That was all I had. I did not know then that this loss would shape every part of my life. I did not know that the truth was hidden, waiting to be found. All I knew was that the house I loved was gone, and with it, the life I thought I would always have. That was the beginning of my fall, the moment everything was taken from me. And at the time, I believed it was the end. When I walked away from my parents' house, I thought the pain would fade after a few days. I was wrong. Pain does not fade when you have nowhere to sleep and no one to call. It follows you, step by step. I began moving through America with no plan, just following buses, highways, and rumors of work. I told myself it was temporary, that I would find my way back to a normal life. Days turned into months and months turned into years. My first long stop was in Boise. I slept under a bridge near the river, wrapping myself in a thin blanket I found at a donation center. The nights were cold, and the sound of water rushing beneath me never stopped. During the day, I stood outside diners asking if they needed help washing dishes. Sometimes they said yes, sometimes they told me to leave. When I worked, I earned a few dollars and spent most of it on cheap food. I learned quickly that hunger changes how you think. Pride becomes small when your stomach is empty. After Boise, I traveled south. I followed warmer weather and hope. In Savannah, I stayed in a shelter near an old church. The shelter was crowded, loud, and smelled of soap and tired bodies, but it was safer than the street. I met people there who had stories heavier than mine. One woman named Clara shared her bread with me when I had nothing. A man named Jonah taught me how to stretch $5 for 3 days. We did not ask how each other ended up there. We just understood. Work came and went. I cleaned tables, carried boxes, and swept floors. Some weeks I earned $40, some weeks nothing at all. I saved every dollar I could, folding the bills carefully and hiding them in my shoe. The most money I ever held at one time was $62. I remember counting it again and again, afraid it would disappear if I looked away. That money made me feel rich, even though it was not enough to change anything. I moved often because staying in one place too long felt dangerous. In Cedar Rapids, I slept in a bus station for 2 weeks before being asked to leave. In Yuma, I stayed behind a grocery store where the lights stayed on all night. Rain was my enemy. When it rained, every doorway was taken, and the ground turned cold and hard. I learned how to sleep sitting up. I learned how to keep one eye open. Some nights were quiet, and those were the hardest. In silence, my mind returned to the past. I dreamed of the old house, of my mother calling my name, of the porch light glowing at night. I woke up crying more times than I can count. I told myself to stop remembering, but memory does not listen. It comes when it wants. People passed me every day. They stepped around me, looked through me, or pretended I was not there. Some dropped coins into my cup without meeting my eyes. Others crossed the street. No one knew my name. No one knew I once had a home. I felt like I had disappeared from the world, like I no longer existed in any real way. As the years passed, I stopped believing life could change. Hope became something dangerous, something that hurt when you held it too tightly. I told myself this was my fate, that this was how my life would end. I stopped thinking about justice or fairness. I focused only on surviving each day. Wake up. Find food. Find a place to sleep. Repeat. There were moments of kindness that stayed with me. In Lancaster, a woman named Miriam bought me a hot meal and sat with me while I ate. She asked nothing in return. In Pueblo, an older man named Franklin gave me his jacket when the nights turned cold. Those moments were small lights in a very dark time. They reminded me that not everyone turned away. Still, the street changes you. I became quieter, harder, and less trusting. I learned to read faces quickly and to leave before trouble started. I kept my past locked inside me because it hurt too much to share. Saying my story out loud made it feel real, and I was not ready for that. 5 years is a long time to live without stability. Birthdays passed without notice. Seasons blurred together. I watched people build lives while I stood still. I wondered if my parents would recognize me if they saw me. I wondered if my brother ever thought about me at all. Eventually, I stopped wondering. The questions without answers only make the days longer. What I did not know was that someone was still looking for me. I did not know that my name had not been forgotten. While I believed my life was over, The truth was waiting, quiet and patient. At the time, all I knew was the street beneath my feet and the sky above my head. Those 5 years broke me in many ways, but they also kept me alive. I learned strength I did not know I had. I learned how to endure when there was nothing left to hold on to. And even though I could not feel it yet, those years were leading me somewhere. I just did not know it then. One cold morning in Bend, I was sitting near the edge of a parking lot, warming my hands around a paper cup of weak coffee. The air was sharp, and my breath came out in small white clouds. I had slept poorly the night before, waking again and again from dreams that felt too close to real life. I was tired in a way that went deeper than my body. I was tired of not being seen. I was tired of being forgotten. That was when I heard my name. At first, I thought I imagined it. No one ever said my name anymore. People called me ma'am, or did not speak at all. But then I heard it again, clear and careful, spoken by a man's voice filled with disbelief and hope. Gloria. I turned around slowly, afraid of being wrong. A man stood a few steps away, staring at me like he was looking at a ghost. He was older, his hair thin and gray, his coat worn at the edges. His eyes filled with tears as soon as ours met. I recognized him before he spoke again. It was my Uncle Harold, my mother's younger brother. I had not seen him in years, but something in his face never changed. He walked toward me and stopped, like he was afraid I might disappear. Then he hugged me, careful and shaking, as if I were fragile glass. I did not cry right away. I was too shocked. All I could think was that someone had finally found me. He told me he had been searching for me for years. He said after my parents passed away, he tried to reach me, but every trail ended cold. He hired people, asked shelters, followed rumors across America. When nothing worked, he even spoke to lawyers in Europe, hoping someone might help track records or missing names. He never stopped looking. Hearing that broke something open inside me. I had believed no one cared. We sat together on a low wall while he spoke. He looked at me with pain and guilt, saying he was sorry he had not found me sooner. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a thick envelope. The moment I saw it, my heart began to race. He told me it was something I needed to see, something that should have been shown to me years ago. Inside were papers. Legal papers. My parents' will. My hands shook so badly, I could barely hold them. I read slowly, afraid my eyes would lie to me. But the words were clear. My parents had left everything to me. The house. The land around it. Their savings. All of it. The amount listed at the bottom made my breath catch. $240,000. It felt unreal, like reading about someone else's life. Marcus's name appeared only once, listed as someone who was not to control or claim the property. My parents had been careful. They had protected me. And my brother had ignored all of it. I felt anger rise, sharp and sudden, mixed with grief, so deep it hurt to breathe. I thought of the nights on cold ground, the hunger, the years lost. I thought of how easily the truth could have saved me. I cried then, openly and without shame. Uncle Harold let me cry. He said nothing. He just stayed. He told me we would fix this, that the law was on my side. For the first time in 5 years, someone spoke about my future like it still existed. Within days, he helped me clean up, buy new clothes, and rest in a small motel. Sleeping in a bed felt strange, safe, almost frightening. Soon after, we traveled to Raleigh, where Harold had already spoken to a lawyer named Elaine Porter. She listened carefully as I told my story. She did not rush me. She did not doubt me. She said what my brother did was wrong and, more importantly, illegal. Hearing that word gave me strength. The court case was not easy. Marcus denied everything. He said I left by choice. He said I was confused. Sitting across from him in that courtroom was harder than any night on the street. He looked clean, comfortable, and confident. I looked different than I used to, but I held my head up. I had the truth. When the will was presented, the room went quiet. Dates, signatures, witnesses. Everything matched. There was no way around it. I watched my brother's face change as the truth closed in on him. I felt no joy in that moment, only a deep sense of finality. The judge ruled in my favor. Those words echoed in my mind long after they were spoken. I had won, not because I wanted revenge, but because I deserved my life back. I reclaimed everything that was rightfully mine: the house, the property, the money. More than that, I reclaimed my name and my place in the world. When I walked out of that courthouse, the sky looked different, brighter, whiter. I was no longer invisible. I was Gloria again, a woman with a future. I knew rebuilding would take time, but for the first time in years, I was not afraid of tomorrow. That day marked the end of the lie I had been living under, and the beginning of the truth. And the truth, once found, was stronger than everything that tried to bury it. Winning the case did not mean my life was suddenly easy. It meant I had a chance. That difference mattered more than anything. After everything was settled, I made a decision that surprised some people, including my Uncle Harold. I did not move back into my parents' old house. I loved it, but it held too much pain. Every wall carried memories of loss, and I knew that if I stayed there, I would live in the past instead of building a future. I needed a place where I could breathe without feeling haunted. I chose Flagstaff, a quiet city in America where the air felt lighter and the streets were calm. I bought a modest house with pale walls and wide windows. It was not large, but it was mine. When I walked inside for the first time, the rooms were empty and silent. There was no furniture, no pictures, no history. That emptiness felt like freedom. For the first time in years, I was standing in a place where nothing bad had happened to me yet. I moved slowly. I did not rush to fill the house. I bought a bed first, then a small table, then a chair. I paid for everything in cash. Each dollar spent felt meaningful because I knew how hard life could be without even one. I kept my finances simple and clear. I placed $15,000 into savings and promised myself never to forget what security truly meant. Money was no longer just numbers. It was safety, choice, and time. As my life settled, I began to look outward. I thought about the shelters that had kept me alive when I had nothing. I remembered the faces of people who shared food, warmth, and kindness with me when they did not have much themselves. I donated money quietly, without names or attention. Giving felt healing. It reminded me that I was no longer only surviving. I was living. I started waking up early, opening my windows, and letting the morning air fill my home. I made simple meals and ate them at my own table. Small routines became precious. Walking through a grocery store without counting every dollar still felt unreal. Some days, I had to stop and remind myself that I was safe now, that I had a key in my pocket and a place to return to. Eventually, my brother reached out. I had expected it, but I was not prepared for how it would feel. Marcus came to see me one afternoon. He looked smaller than I remembered, like the weight of his actions had finally caught up with him. He cried. He said he was ashamed. He said he was sorry. I listened quietly. I did not interrupt him. I did not argue. When he finished, he looked at me like he was waiting for something. Forgiveness, maybe. Or relief. But I felt calm, not angry, not satisfied, just clear. I told him I accepted his apology, but I did not forgive him. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because forgiveness was not something I owed him. What he did changed my life forever. Choosing not to forgive was not bitterness. It was honesty. After he left, I felt lighter. I realized that peace does not always come from fixing the past. Sometimes it comes from protecting the present. I chose myself that day, fully and without guilt. I began sharing my story with others, not for attention, but because silence helps no one. I spoke at small gatherings and community centers. I told people how quickly life can fall apart and how slowly it can come back together. I watched others listen with tears in their eyes, and I knew my story mattered beyond me. Some nights, I still remembered the street. Trauma does not disappear just because circumstances change. But those memories no longer controlled me. They reminded me of my strength. They reminded me of how far I had come. I fill my house with plants and books. I painted the walls a warm color that made the rooms feel alive. I laughed more. I slept deeply. I stopped waiting for something bad to happen. That was the hardest habit to break. Now, when I stand in my kitchen and look out the window, I feel grounded. I am not rich in a way that separates me from others. I am rich in a way that allows me to choose my life. I am careful, grateful, and awake. I tell my story because I want others to know this truth. Life can break you, but it does not own you. What was taken from me did not define me. What I rebuilt did. My name is Gloria. I lost everything once, and I found myself again in America, $1, one decision, and one act of courage at a time.